Near-death experience number 1. The first experience happened in 2005. I was in my Ford pickup just after leaving a job site. I was a salesman for a construction equipment company. I was stopped at a corner in Georgia. I remember motioning for the car coming from the opposite direction to make their turn, as they were there first. Then I remember hearing a quick skid and hearing what sounded like an enormous explosion, the crashing of metal and shattering of glass. After that, I remember a feeling of beautiful peace, contentment, happiness, calmness, comfort, warmth, and no pain. I felt as if someone were behind me, and, as I was still strapped in my seatbelt, I felt I was being held from behind and my head was resting on a woman's breast. It was, at that time, the most incredible, wonderful feeling I had ever had. I had never felt that way in my life. It was truly beautiful. I have no idea how long I remained in that state, but, from talking to witnesses, I was unconscious for several minutes. When I woke up, I remember feeling a little angry. I felt angry that I was awake and that the wonderful feeling was gone. Then the pain started and reality hit me in the face. After that, my memory is very foggy, almost non-existent. Other than that, I was out of my truck walking around. And a woman told me my head was bleeding. I put my hand back there to see. It was covered in blood. The ambulance arrived and I was taken to the emergency room, and then, after several hours, a friend brought me home. Near-death experience number 2. My second experience happened about 3 years ago. In between those years, I had cervical spine surgery where they used cadaver bone to replace vertebrae in my cervical spine. A plate with 6 screws was inserted to keep it all together. Anyway, I was at the surgery center where I would go for injections in my back and cervical spine for pain. I had had several of each since my accident. This time my doctor decided to go into my cervical spine through the right side of my neck. All the other neck injections that I'd had been done from the back of my neck. The procedure went on, and after about an hour or so, my doctor said he was done and asked how I felt. I told him I was a little short of breath and they turned me over on my back. It was then that I suddenly couldn't breathe. I remember fighting to get up and trying to say, "I can't breathe." The nurses, doctor and techs were trying to hold me down. My doctor started to use one of those blue breathing bags on me, and I remember I was still fighting to get up. I have no idea how long that went on. It felt like a long time, though. Then I just seemed to lie back down. My doctor had the bag on me and was stroking my head. Then I relieved myself and thought, man, I just peed all over myself, but I felt no fear. I remember I was looking up at the drop ceiling and heard a nurse say, "My God, we're losing him, get the crash cart." Then I heard her say, "What do you mean, you can't find the crash cart? Get it now, we're losing him." Then I heard wheels, like on a cart. By now, I remember, I had my eyes closed and was feeling the most incredible feelings. They were feelings of happiness, peace and calm like I've never felt. It was more intense than what I had felt in the accident. Then I remember seeing a beautiful unexplainable whiteness, like an explosion of beautiful bright white. The best way to describe it would be a bright white light, but it wasn't a light. It looked like many, many beams coming from a small center and just exploding into pure white. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I couldn't hear anything, but I felt warm, comfortable, happy, peaceful, and excited. It was like a kid just about to open his Christmas presents multiplied by millions. It's difficult for me to explain. There was absolutely no fear. I remember only beauty and beautiful feelings of, wow. I always get tongue-tied at this point, because I just can't think of words to explain it. I also remember seeing a very small silhouette way back in the center of this beautiful, bright, white light or whatever it was. I don't remember if it was moving or maybe motioning to me, but I think it was. I have no idea how long this lasted, but, as far as I was concerned, I didn't want it to stop. Then I remember this beautiful white light retracting back into its center. Like a funnel. My eyes opened and I remember my body making a huge gasp of inhaling oxygen. I remember that when my body gasped for that first breath, I sat up. A nurse looked to be crying. I saw tears in her eyes and on her face. I had no idea what had happened and I remember no feeling of relief or anything. I remember my doctor saying I had had a panic attack. Now, I had been having panic attacks for 15 years and I never, ever, had this happen. I remember asking a nurse what she thought and she said it wasn't a panic attack, and that was all she'd say. My wife brought me home after a couple of hours in recovery, where I told her what happened. That evening I was talking with a doctor that does these procedures. And he told me that on very rare occasions, these injections, when given through the side of the neck, can sometimes seep into the central nervous system. And, as in my case, deaden the nerves that control the diaphragm, and therefore, breathing stops. I also have to say that after the first time, in the accident, I have felt the need to do something nice for at least one person every day. Be it just opening a door for someone with their hands full or making someone smile. It's all so hard to explain for me, but I do this every day. And will continue to do so until, when this happens again, I don't come back. After the second time, I have felt no fear of death. Understand that I'm in no hurry, I want to be with my wife and see my children and grandchildren grow up and get old. But I just know that when it is my time, I will welcome it. I also look at death differently. It is just another step we take to something so beautiful that no one should be afraid. When I say this to people they nod, but I know they think I'm crazy. I know I'm not.